My name is Marit Kitaw. I am the Interim Director of the African Minerals Development Center, which is a specialized agency of the African Union whose mandate is to implement the African mining vision. I am here today in Dakar, Senegal, attending the AfroDAD meeting on African Conference on Debt and Development. And I'm very happy to be here because it's very much related to the work we are doing in making sure that minerals leads to sustainable development, and of course that has to do with revenue and debt management as well in general, or financing of development in general. Currently, we are headquartered in Addis Ababa, the AUC headquarters. Since AMDC existed under the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa since 2013, and adopted by African Nation States in 2009. So that was in those times. And the vision itself was developed in 2009. We have made progress since AMDC existed under the African. So we look at it from the AMV perspective and the AMDC perspective. We look at it from the whole value chain. Of course, we start just with taxation, but also when you add value, you increase the market size, and the revenue you receive from that market also becomes more. For instance, if I take one example from the DRC and Zambia, for instance, if the DRC exports raw cobalt, it will only target $11 billion market. But if it goes to precursor, which is the nickel, manganese, cobalt, and it value adds, the market becomes bigger. It becomes 271 billion. And if it goes to the electric battery, vehicle battery manufacturing, it goes to 7 trillion. You can imagine if that money comes back, then the country it doesn't need to go in debt. So that's the kind of domestic resource mobilization we are advocating for, increasing the pie, optimizing the revenue we get from the minerals so that we do not have to borrow. But of course, we agree that we need to borrow, but at least making sure that the base is large enough. So at the African Minerals Development Center, we provide technical support, advisory services, and we provide capacity building to governments. We work, like I mentioned, we work throughout the whole value chain, but we have tools, implementation tools. For instance, we have the African Minerals Governance Framework to assess where the countries are in terms of their policies, the regulatory framework, their taxation regimes, their fiscal regimes, where they are with their artisanal small-scale mining, how they have local content policies, local procurement policies. So we assess that. So we have a whole governance framework that looks into that. So we give red, yellow, or green light, and depending on the results of that, we provide technical assistance, advisory services, and capacity building to achieve that. Another tool that we have is the Country Mining Vision Guidebook. It's essentially translating the AMV to the countries, the reality of the countries. Of course, it's not one size fits all. It depends on the context. So we have options that are provided to countries where they are, and that is also done with the assessment. So basically, AMDC needs to be ratified. Currently, the statute of the AMDC, we only have 3 + 1 coming ratification, and we need 15. So what does that ratification do is that it will make AMDC a recognized specialized agency of the African Union. When we say minerals, we also look at oil and gas, but of course the dimensions are different, the kind of agreements are different, so we look at it from different parts, but we also deal with that. I mean, we worked with Mozambique when it did the negotiation for gas back in the days. We are advocating for the same policies, but then sometimes it's for instance, we advocate for more product sharing agreement when it's oil and gas, or if you do the pipelines when it's gas, you have to make sure that how do you retain for your country instead of just using pipelines to send to other countries like Mozambique was doing with South Africa. So sometimes the discussions are different, but we look at minerals for us means oil and gas and solid minerals. together. Now, because of this decarbonization agenda, more and more green minerals are needed. They can be called critical minerals or green minerals, as we call them, because they are more green and strategic than critical for Africa. So these minerals, cobalt, lithium, graphite, nickel, manganese, are what are needed for electric batteries, but also for batteries for electric vehicles, but also for solar panels, for wind turbines. All of these, there are 20 critical minerals that Africa has. It's the first producer of the three, and the demand for these minerals is expanding like 600 times, and this positions Africa to be the leader. And this is where we think that we have our strategies about making sure that we process it in-house. We are expanding on that, making sure that we have the right skills, the right technology, and then that will create jobs and transform the economy. That's how we link it to sustainable development. We need to have bold strategies. Of course, there are many issues because we need the technology, we need the skills, and we need to look at it from the whole perspective of getting it in a practical way, investing in African investors as well. We are very much focusing on currently is the DRC Zambia precursor plant. They are trying to have precursor plant in both countries. So we are part of the for the DRC side. We are part of the Conseil Congolais de la Batterie, Congolese Country Battery Council. So this is one that we really think that we should. Once we make the point that it can be done in one African country, because the argument was that Africa does not have the comparative advantage or the competitive advantage of having a precursor, but we proved that it can be done, because usually these precursors are done in China, and they have to go through all these channels from imports, and that for the emission is not good, but also not when we thought at the beginning that it was cost effective because the labor is cheap in China, but we realize now it's even cheaper to do it in Africa, and at the price of the cobalt or the minerals that are sourced locally. So this is one we are following, the DRC, the Zambia one, but we are also now we are also following up on some of the what is occurring in Botswana with their diamond, Namibia as well. And we have also countries that are coming to us and asking for technical and advisory support, especially with regards to their policies and regulatory frameworks, and then practical. But right now, we are doing assessment frameworks for Morocco, Zambia, Gabon, actually, Ghana, and DRC. We are seeing where they are. And then after that assessment, using the African Mineral Governance Framework, we'll be providing them technical advice, technical support when there is a gap. And it's also good for peer learning when you have one framework. In general, there's a whole understanding now that we cannot just mine and export raw material. Zimbabwe is one also that banned officially exporting raw. So we'll see. I mean, it's getting very exciting, especially with these critical strategic green minerals, where the future is. There's a lot of awakening on how to do it. So we really have to work together, maybe regionally, and see how we can do that properly in a sustainable. And last word is that we are very optimistic that there's awakening now that we can use our minerals for sustainable development in Africa. So we are very encouraged by the narrative, the changing narrative of minerals, now that we need them for the decarbonization agenda. So it's like killing two birds at the same time. We're getting green, and at the same time we are transforming our economy. So we are very hopeful that in the next 5-10 years we'll be thinking about minerals differently, and we have been developing through them.